Welcome to The Long Way Through Scripture. I'm Catherine Schaefer. This is a slow walk through the Bible. Not rushed, not pressured, just one section at a time, letting it unfold as it does. Each week, we're not trying to master Scripture. We're just learning how to stay with it a little longer than we normally would. If you're following along and you want something to help you process what you're reading, there is a companion workbook for this podcast. It's simple, not overwhelming, just something to help you reflect and stay anchored in the text as you go. You can find it in the show notes or through the link in my bio on Facebook. But it's there if you want it, not something you have to keep up with. But I'm really glad you're here. So let's begin. We are on week 16, 2 Samuel. So this part of the story begins where the last one left off, but the tone feels different almost immediately. Saul is gone. That tension that followed David for so long, the constant running, the uncertainty, the waiting, it's over. And for a moment, it might feel like this is where everything finally settles. The obstacle is gone, the calling can finally unfold the way it was meant to. But what actually happens is quieter than that. David doesn't rush forward. He doesn't assume. He doesn't take the crown by force or step into leadership without pause. He asks God what to do next. Even after everything he's been through, after being anointed all those years ago, he still stops and seeks direction. That's a small moment, but it sets the tone for everything that follows. Because this part of the story isn't about David becoming king, as much as it is about what kind of king he becomes. At first, the kingdom doesn't come together all at once. There's still division. Judah recognizes David before the rest of Israel does. There's tension, conflict, a slow process of things coming into alignment. It doesn't feel like a clean transition. It feels like real life, where things unfold in stages and not everything settles at the same time. Eventually, the kingdom unites and David becomes king over all Israel. Jerusalem becomes the center, the place where everything gathers. And there's a sense that something stable is finally taking shape. There's movement here that feels strong, almost hopeful. Victories happen. The kingdom expands. The promise that once felt distant now feels established. And then something shifts again. Not outwardly at first, but inwardly. David's life slows into something that looks settled, and in that stillness, a different kind of tension begins to surface. The battles aren't the same anymore. The threats aren't coming from the outside in the same way. And this is where the story turns in a way that feels uncomfortable, but honest. The moment with Bathsheba doesn't arrive with warning. It doesn't feel like a dramatic turning point at the start. It's quiet, almost ordinary in how it begins. A glance, a decision, a choice that could have gone differently, but didn't. And from that moment, everything begins to unravel in ways that can't be contained. What stands out here isn't just the action itself, but how quickly one decision leads to another. One step creates the need for another, and then another, until the situation is no longer something that can be managed quietly. David, who showed restraint for so long while he was being formed, now finds himself making decisions that reflect something very different. And this is where the story refuses to idealize him. There's no attempt to soften what happens, no rewriting of the moment to make it easier to accept. The consequences move forward in a way that feels real and unavoidable. There's also something else here. When Nathan confronts David, there's no deflection, no attempt to justify or explain it away. David doesn't pretend it didn't happen. He doesn't shift the blame. He responds with a kind of honesty that is rare, especially in someone with power. And that matters. Because it shows that even when things break, when decisions carry real consequences, the posture of the heart still matters. The consequences don't disappear. The story doesn't reset. What unfolds in the chapters that follow carries weight. There's loss, tension within David's own household, fractures that ripple outward into relationships that were once stable. This is the part of the story that feels heavy to sit in, because it reminds us that stepping into what God has called us to doesn't remove the possibility of failure. It doesn't eliminate the need for continued alignment. If anything, responsibility makes that alignment even more important. David's life begins to reflect the cost of decisions in a way that is deeply personal. The struggles are no longer external. They're inside his own family, inside his own house, the space that should have felt the most secure. And yet, even here, the story doesn't stop. It keeps moving. David continues to lead, continues to respond. There are moments where he shows wisdom, shows restraint again, where the earlier formation in his life still shows through. But there's also a sense that something has changed. Not in a way that erases everything, but in a way that adds weight to it. By the time we move toward the later chapters, the tone becomes more reflective again. There are moments where David looks back, where the story slows just enough to acknowledge everything that has unfolded. The victories, the failures, the faithfulness, the missteps. They're all part of the same life. Nothing is separated out into clean categories. And maybe that's one of the most important things about this part of Scripture. It doesn't present a perfect leader. It presents a real one. Someone who was called, formed, trusted, failed, responded, and kept walking. As you read through 2 Samuel this week, it may feel different than what you expected after week 15. The rise to the throne happens, but the story doesn't stay there. It moves into something deeper, something more complex. This isn't just about becoming who you're called to be. It's about continuing to be shaped after you get there. If you're using the workbook alongside this is another place where slowing down can really help. Not to overanalyze, but just to sit with the reality that growth doesn't stop at arrival. The reflection to carry with you this week is this. What we do after stepping into what God has given us matters just as much as how we got there. Faithfulness isn't just about the journey toward something. It's about how we live once we're in it. Stay with the tension, with the honesty of the story, and with the reminder that God works through real lives, not perfect ones. And that is where this part of the journey leaves us. Not in the waiting anymore, but in the weight of what it means to carry what we've been given. As you move into the reading this week, remember, there's no rush. Read slowly, read a little at a time, or simply sit with the passages if that's what the week allows. Scripture doesn't ask us to perform. It invites us to remain. Everything connected to this journey lives in the show notes. It's all there in one place, so you don't have to go looking for it. And thank you for walking this long way with me. And I'll meet you here again next week.